Anti-Semitism, while we call it society's oldest hatred, is also one of the most difficult to recognize because it morphs. It doesn't look the same in every generation.
Throughout Jewish history, the entire premise of anti-Semitism is that Jews have too much power, Jews have too much privilege, Jews are overrepresented.
All our martyrs have a name! All our martyrs have a name!
Jews are that elite that are behind the scenes manipulating things to their advantage.
From killing Jesus Christ to bringing about disease, whether it was the bubonic plague or COVID. Anti-Semitism takes whatever is the issue of the day and it pins it on the Jew. The last 75 years, we have a Jewish nation state, the State of Israel. Today, you have individuals who say that Jewish state is the worst offender when it comes to human rights.
What are you taking down?
The Nazis saw the Jews as the race polluters.
Bitch, this is propaganda. Don't fucking talk to me.
But today, all Jews are white colonialist oppressors.
White supremacists. We're Jewish. You're a white supremacist. You're a white supremacist.
The Jews are once again to blame.
Colleges and universities were among the first places to see this resurgence of Jew hatred in the United States.
How did Jewish life on campus become unsafe for Jews? If we are to be completely honest with ourselves, it's been building for years. Fed by extremist ideas, nourished by radical teachers, and tolerated by cowardly administrators.
Today, each of you will have a chance to answer to and atone for the many specific instances of vitriolic, hate-filled anti-Semitism on your respective campuses.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking, specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context? Yes or no?
If the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board.
Do you think they should step down?
I certainly think the three of them should step aside. And I don't ever want any student, I don't care if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, I don't want anyone to be afraid to go to class, to be who they are.
Liz McGill has resigned following controversial statements regarding anti-Semitism.
The president of Harvard University, Claudine Gay, resigned today, weeks after her controversial testimony before Congress.
On many college campuses, even people who are committed to the civil rights of every other group in this country often have a blind spot when it comes to Jews. While the problems have gotten worse and worse, young people are now taking the initiative more and more, fighting anti-Semitism, taking charge themselves.
I admire the courage of these students who are standing up to anti-Semitism within their college campuses, within what should be a safe space for everyone.
Can we create the places where that that complexity, that nuance, that real debate can happen on our campuses.
George Washington University is unique. We are situated in the heart of Washington, D.C., just about 2 blocks from the White House, just down the road from Capitol Hill.
The Jewish life here is pretty rich. GW is about 25% Jewish.
We actually have 5 different Jewish organizations in total on campus, and I've pretty much dipped my toes into all of them, and they're all amazing.
Hillel and Chabad are both very welcoming places that are vibrant and well attended. So being Jewish on campus is pretty good here, minus when bad things happen.
Things started to happen, but I didn't foresee that it would become this routine and this repetitive.
Unfortunately, this year, GW has experienced many forms of hate speech. In early November, there was an anti-Semitic incident on campus.
A girl was videoed walking down the hallway of my dorm saying, we're going to bomb Israel, get out of here, Jewish pieces of you-know-what.
What are we gonna do to Israel?
Bro, we're gonna fucking bomb Israel, bro. Fuck out of here, Jewish pieces.
You are ostracized and marginalized, even if you are a progressive and a liberal. She turns around and she says, hey, yo, we're gonna bomb Israel, you Jewish pieces of shit. And that caused all sorts of outrage at my school.
Outrage and condemnation, but that soon splintered into a debate on which aspects of what she said were anti-Semitic. Was it just the mention of Jews specifically, or was it also the call to bomb Israel?
We're never going to get rid of anti-Semitism, but what we do need is to make sure that our society, A, begins to understand what anti-Semitism is, B, begins to understand what Jewish identity is, and C, begins to see the harassment and discrimination that's taking place for what it is, and not confusing it anymore, or allowing themselves to be confused into thinking that it's a political debate. It's not a political debate, and discrimination of Jews is not speech.
Criticism of Israel is, of course, okay. That's discourse that we can have, but the call to bomb Israel, the only nation for the Jews in the entire world, is also anti-Semitic.
Israel is an inherent part of being Jewish, as being Jewish is part of Israel. In the Torah, you read Jerusalem and Israel so many times, you can't take Israel out of being Jewish.
It really becomes personal because as a Jew, you're so connected to Israel, and I think it's like somewhere that I feel like is a home for me.
It is our ancestral and indigenous homeland.
Zionism is a movement that says to Jews, you have a right to self-defense, you have a right to sovereignty, you have a right to self-govern in your indigenous ancestral homeland.
If you're going to deny that the Jews have an ancient history in the land of Israel, if you're going to deny that Jews are indigenous to Judea, and you're going to demand that Jews accept this distorted identity and erase, right, what is unique about Jewish identity, deny Jewish history, Jewish culture, Jewish heritage, that is going to enable and facilitate anti-Semitism on your campus.
This evening, the GW Hillel and myself organized a discussion with Noah Tishby, who's Israel's special envoy to combat anti-Semitism.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that a lot of students would benefit from hearing her speak about how anti-Zionist discourse can become very dangerous and anti-Semitic.
It's not cool to call on, like, death for the Jews. Nobody walks around and says that, right? But whereas before, the world kind of said, let's just rid the world of the Jew, and everything would be fine, right? Today, some people are actually saying, let's just rid the world of the Jewish state, and everything will be, it's all going to be fine. It's the same. It's exactly the same. And we need to know to identify that. Anti-Semitism comes in various shapes. It comes on the extreme right.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not!
So on the extreme right, it sounds like the classic anti-Semitism, the good old, Jews will not replace us, that kind of thing, Confederacy flags, and the Jews being the vermin and like dirty and whatever. And on the left, it sounds like Israel's ethnically cleansing the Palestinians.
For 75 years, there's been ethnic cleansing.
Because Israel's not a perfect country, but it's not fucking ethnically cleansing anybody.
Anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are not defined in the code of conduct here. Jewish students felt, how can the university adequately respond to incidents of anti-Semitism if they haven't even defined what anti-Semitism is?
The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism represents the Jewish experience of anti-Semitism today, including when anti-Semitism is masked as anti-Israelism or anti-Zionism.
It says what anti-Semitism is, and more importantly, it has examples relative to Israel. If you see double standards towards Israel, if Israel is being demonized or delegitimized in the same way that these things have been done to the Jewish people for centuries, that might well be anti-Semitism.
We thought that this would be the appropriate definition to propose to the Student Association to accept.
I stand before you today, urging you to support this resolution condemning anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is much more prevalent than you may think, manifested both violently and non-violently. The specific incident that prompted all of this is reprehensible, but it's just one instance that happened to be caught on video.
I remember lots of late nights going to the Student Association to get bills passed with IRA, which never happened.
This is not about politics. It is about my right to live on this campus safely and the right of my fellow Jewish and Israeli students to carry their identities with pride.
Since I was a little kid, my mom always told me that I'm gonna have to work twice as hard because I'm Jewish, because I'm black, because I'm the child of a refugee.
My husband was born in the former Soviet Union. We have 4 kids, 27, 23, 14, and 10. 3 boys and a girl at the end. Yeah, they're Black Russian Jews. They're proud of who they are and what they are and where they come from.
And you can ask anyone in this room who's Jewish, who here has a family member who's a refugee? Raise your hands. Who here has a family member who fled persecution, who fled violence because of their ethnic religious identity? Raise your hands. This is what you're looking at, okay? This is our story. We have a right to be connected to our homeland, and for you to deny that is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to put up with it anymore, okay?
Jews originate from the land of Israel. The first time that he spoke on it, a lot of people saw and watched that it was a really big deal.
A number of senators said that it needed to be amended to take out any mention of the Jewish homeland.
This George Washington University Student Association Senate absolutely does not have the power, nor is it within our purview, to recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state.
The problem clearly was not addressed at its roots.
Raise your placard if you're in favor of adopting this First Amendment. Like high.
Anti-Semitism continued on this campus.
Police are investigating a vandalism attack at a George Washington University fraternity home.
Among the vandalized was a Torah scroll.
We had a Torah scroll that was vandalized inside a frat house, which was very, very distressing. Swastikas in dorm room halls and mezuzot have been torn off of doorposts.
It's disheartening, and we have to be strong together and be united.
During my freshman year here at Berkeley, there was a public debate. There were about 200 pro-Palestinian students. They started screaming, "You're a murderer, you're a terrorist, you're a supremacist." A friend of mine, she got approached by a pro-Palestinian student that said, "I'm gonna kick your ass." I went back home and I started crying. I was so shocked at what happened. I never really experienced hate the way I experienced it that day.
So many freshmen, myself included, get to campus and have no idea, first of all, how to even talk about anti-Semitism. Second of all, how to recognize it. So when they see it the first time, they're like, oh my God, what do I do?
At Tufts University, it's one of the most anti-Semitic schools in the country. There was a GroupMe chat that was created for all freshman students. One of my peers mentioned that he was Jewish. The first reply was, "You are only acceptable as a Jewish student if you reject this one aspect of your Jewish identity, being your connection to Israel or Zionism."
And what Notre Dame has been doing is trying to think, how do we be more inclusive of other identities? And what I found in my experience of working with the administration is they do want to do good work and they want to make sure every student feels like a part of the Notre Dame family, which I'm a huge fan of and I support. It's just like alerting them of problems on campus, like resource inequities. And I've never taken it to be like on purpose or anything. Like it's just something that wasn't addressed or wasn't thought of. And largely like my efforts with the administration have been positive. And so I've been really thankful for that. I have a professor who wrote a recommendation for me and he asked me all these questions about what is it like to have my Jewish identity develop in a Catholic environment. When I speak to professors or other students about being Jewish, it's celebrated and there's an opportunity for dialogue, especially from an interfaith perspective. Bob is the Community Relations Director at the local Jewish Federation. Hey Bob, how are you? Bob and I talk pretty frequently. The students who are experiencing anti-Semitism should be the ones to define it, identify it, and say how this is how we should combat it.
There's a phrase in Hebrew called avodat kodesh. It means sacred work.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing avodat kodesh.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're trying to do that every day.
So go Irish.
Yes.
For far too long, outsiders have tried to speak for Jewish students, tell them how to fight anti-Semitism, but it's really students that are experiencing the anti-Semitism on campus. So we've realized that we need to take on the fight.
I'm studying data science at Berkeley. Both my parents went to universities in Russia. I'm the first one within my family to be born here and get to go to university here. My parents actually hate talking about their time in Russia. It's always something that, I have to force into conversation because I think for them it's not the most fond memories of not being able to express themselves.
Ты будешь интервью делать по-русски тоже?
Конечно, и на иврите.
Они мне сказали, что они...
Here at Berkeley, it's sort of a similar thing. Do I go into a conversation saying that I'm Jewish, that I'm a part of Jewish on campus, or do I kind of avoid that?
There's different kinds of anti-Semitism that you see here. They start calling Israel an apartheid state. They start accusing Israel of murdering Palestinian children, which is a modern-day invocation of the blood libel. Students just like to yell out, "Free Palestine," unprovoked because it's a day that ends with the letter Y.
The truth is I don't tell many people I was in the IDF, just because, I don't know how people are going to respond here. I don't necessarily feel like it's the most open place that would be accepting of that. So coming here, I do feel like a little bit I have to hide that side of me.
I didn't realize how pervasive and severe the issue was.
Now just because we're kids
I had no clue that Jewish students, for example, hide their Stars of David, that they're basically afraid to speak up in class or avoid certain classes on the Middle East. There was just a sense that they felt unwelcome and at times afraid.
Just because your throat has got a deep...
I have never experienced the kind of hatred that is being meted out to Jewish students on college campuses. It's had an immense emotional impact on me, I'd say. I definitely despair of the world now more than I ever have, because the cruelty, it's undertaken so casually.
I'm from the former Soviet Union. My mother, right before we left the Soviet Union, she experienced a lot of anti-Semitism. And she said to me, I just want you to know, Naya, that when they say Zionist, they mean you. They mean Jew. I saw what I saw on college campus, and I'm really sad. I'm very, very, very upset because it's been 20 years, and it's not only has it not gotten better, it's gotten worse. And I have to give you this advice. The more you guys are gonna go silently into the night, the worse it's gonna be. So you have to fight. Do you know why you care? I'll tell you why you care, because it's your Jewish identity on the line. That's why you care.
This morning, explosions in Gaza, smoke and flames rising from multiple blasts.
In May 2021, there was an outbreak between Hamas and Israel.
People rushing for cover as the militant groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad fired hundreds of rockets.
The spring of 2021, my support of the basic right of Israel to exist was more controversial than I realized. I had experiences where I had one student who complained that I supported Israel, went to my department chair and complained about that. I had a professor who I didn't know send me an email that basically said, I've become aware that you're a supporter. I interpret it as kind of like we're watching you. 2021, when hostilities increased between Israel and Palestine, to me was a real turning point.
Hey, how are you?
At the University of Vermont, we've had so many different incidents happen.
This is the Hillel building.
I was on the first floor of Hillel. It was Shabbat, so I was reading.
That was my room. That was the only window in my room. From there, I could see them. There was, I want to say around 5 of them. They were grabbing rocks from here. So as you can see, they're pretty sizable rocks, and they were throwing them towards the side of the building.
One of my friends who's upstairs notices that rocks are being thrown at my window. She opened her window and she talked to them. One of the things they asked her is, "Are you Jewish?" And after she said yes, they threw a rock at her window.
Okay, hey everybody, welcome to Sephardi House. This is our first event for the semester. Come in. We have Avi here today, who has Moroccan heritage, and he can do a Moroccan tea ceremony. We'll all drink tea, eat baklava, and schmooze. All right.
Okay, so in the spring semester of 2021, the teaching assistant for a class made a tweet that she would lower the grades of Zionist students. And students who did things that were culturally related to Israel. We have Israeli fruit tea. We have pomegranate, raspberry, hibiscus. I don't even know if the advertisements for this event said it had anything to do with Jewish stuff, so it's okay, by the way, if you're not Jewish in this room.
At University of Vermont, it's not that criticism of Israel is unacceptable. It's that anti-Zionists treat Jewish students in such a way that would never be allowed if the behavior targeted other minorities.
Shabbat Shalom from Chabad at UVM.
I'm making salmon pieces.
An Instagram page called Share Your Story UVM would share anonymous submissions from survivors of sexual assault. In 2021, they announced that Zionists would not be able to have their stories shared through their platform.
We will always stand with our Jewish community in preserving the resilience, beauty, and culture of Judaism and Jewish life. What we cannot stand with is Israel and Zionists. If you're Jewish, you have to explicitly say that you don't support the state of Israel, or your sexual assault doesn't matter. Are you going to tell this to any other student whose countries have problems? Are you going to tell this to the Russian students, to the Chinese students, to anybody?
When an Instagram page called Share Your Story UVM blogged Zionists, it really broke a lot of people, especially people who had survived sexual assault themselves.
Sometimes the way to become stronger in your Judaism is to be pressed down, and sometimes this being pushed down helps you leap higher and you're even stronger than you were before any incidents happened.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
Zionism for you is a key part of what it means to be a Jew. What they're saying is that they want to exclude you on the basis of your Jewish identity. That's unacceptable. Because Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, right, one of our key tools, requires that universities which receive federal government funds make sure that all their opportunities are equally available to all their students.
I'm about to sign into law the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 applies to all entities that receive federal government funds.
If you are a recipient of federal funding, and most colleges and universities receive some sort of federal funding, then you are required to make sure that your programs and activities are free from discrimination based on race, color, or national origin.
National origin also includes shared ancestry and ethnicity, so groups like Jews, Sikhs, Muslims are afforded protection against discrimination under the guise of Title VI.
Jewish on Campus alerted us to a problem at the University of Vermont. We worked with them closely to investigate what was happening and ultimately to file a complaint with the Office for Civil Rights.
The U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights opened an investigation into complaints alleging Jewish students at the University of Vermont faced, quote, severe and persistent anti-Semitic harassment.
We have an Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Justice, and we have one at the Department of Education. We have ones that deal with these issues, right? So I was saying to them, what are you doing about this? You're just gonna allow this to go on? We should put federal money in these colleges?
The events of the past couple of weeks have shaken me on many levels.
President Garamella responded to the Title VI complaint publicly in a way that was quite unfortunate.
He says the university vigorously denies what it called a false allegation of an insufficient response, saying local media outlets even followed a, quote, uninformed narrative.
Here he is not only accusing his students of being liars, but of, he's also saying that, the media is kind of complicit in some conspiracy to make the university look bad.
The university suggested that students were throwing rocks at the side of the building to get the attention of somebody who lived in the dorm. I lived in the dorm. They threw rocks at my window. They threw rocks at my neighbor's window. They threw rocks at my neighbor's neighbor window. Unless they're trying to get the attention of the entire Hillel building, I really don't think that's what was happening.
Today, a resolution agreement between the Department of Education and UVM was released. UVM is committing to a review of its policies and procedures, training of university staff, students, and leadership, and report back to the Department of Education.
It was the first case actually signaling if there is a shunning or harassment or exclusion of Jewish students under the guise of anti-Zionism, that will be treated as a serious civil rights issue that needs to be promptly and effectively addressed by the university. And if the university doesn't do it, federal investigators will step in.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
We considered it to be a big victory.
We are now demanding that universities take this form of discrimination as seriously as they take all other forms of discrimination. They should address it with the same vigor, the same seriousness, the same intensity that they would address discrimination of any of these other groups.
At George Washington University, there is a master's program in clinical psychology.
Hi folks, how are you? You are in for a treat. My name is Lara, and this psychology professor named Lara Sheehy, she was teaching a mandatory diversity class in the graduate school.
The very first day of the class, when the students were being asked to introduce themselves, one of the students, in speaking about their identity, mentioned that they were born in Israel. Unprovoked, without any hesitation, apparently, the response from the professor was that it wasn't the student's fault that they were born in Israel.
Obviously that took them by surprise, because that kind of a comment. It's weird, like, if I was from France and somebody said, oh, it's not your fault, you were born in France. Like, what? It's kind of strange.
Wow, okay, this isn't what we expected. We're talking about our identities, and immediately off the bat, one of the students is essentially being shamed. Professor Sheehy's tweets were offensive. They were hateful.
We must stand in solidarity with all liberation efforts. We must follow the lead of our Palestinian colleagues. We must center Palestine in every effort, and we must bravely support boycott, divestment, and sanction efforts despite threats and efforts to derail solidarity.
Why should they continue to subject themselves to that hostile environment? At GW, it was different because it was a mandatory class. They couldn't leave. And yet, instead of just remaining silent, they spoke up.
We worked with the students who had been impacted to draft a Title VI complaint.
George Washington University is responding to allegations of discrimination and a complaint about a civil rights violation. The group that filed the complaint, Stand With Us, claims a professor in the psychology program targeted Jewish and Israeli students in the program's diversity course. George Washington University's president released a statement reading...
GW decided to hire an outside firm to conduct an investigation into what had happened.
I was actually very hopeful when they started investigating. I was really, really disappointed when the report came out.
The administration essentially vindicated itself of any wrongdoing. There were claims that the IRA definition of anti-Semitism that some of these students wanted to use was too broad.
It's important to think about how a situation like this would have transpired had the victims been Black or Latino and not Jewish and perceived as being white.
You have professors that are telling students things about their national origin, things about their ethnic background that are demeaning. And if those professors made those comments about any other people, they would be fired. And they're not, because it's directed towards Jews and Israel.
I am a Black man. I'm concerned, and I'm also sad. Sometimes it's public humiliation of Jewish students, a real attempt to cut them down. And I think to myself, it's kind of unfair that, everyone kind of hesitates to do something about this. And it's wrong. It's not just unfair, it's wrong. And I think to some extent, evil, like a kind of evil that has always been aimed at the Jewish people.
I opened my email one morning to find the Department of Education has opened a full investigation into our allegations. It really was a tremendous relief to know that the Department of Education is taking this seriously, and for the first time, these students' concerns will be addressed. It would be fantastic to have the university educate the necessary faculty about Zionism and anti-Zionism.
Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans?
Louis Armstrong has a connection to a Jewish family, the Karnofsky family, which is my mother's family. The connection to Louis Armstrong is my grandfather's parents ran a junkyard, and so they would collect people's trash and they would bring it to the dump, and they took Louis Armstrong into their home and kind of raised him in a sense. And he worked for the junkyard company, and there's stories about how on the little buggy that they were collecting trash on, that Louis Armstrong was playing the cornet to let people know that they were coming to collect trash to bring to the junkyard. And the story also is that my family gave Louis Armstrong the down payment to buy his first cornet. He's paid homage to that connection to the Jewish community, and specifically my family, throughout his life, when he wore a Star of David for all of his performances. And I believe up into his death, but he also spoke periodically about my family as well as the recognition he had for the Jewish community, that like they go through discrimination and harassment just like he did as an African American. He wore Star of David as kind of a homage to him being brought in by this Jewish family, and also to show his connection to the Jewish community.
More than I miss New Orleans.
Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans and miss it each night and day? I know
I'm Yasmin Ohebsian. My mom is from Israel and my dad from Iran. Ohev in Hebrew is love, and Zion is Zion. So it technically means like love Israel or love Zion, but in English people pronounce it Ohebsian. The first time I experienced anti-Semitism here at Tulane was a teacher provided a writing by a particularly anti-Semitic professor.
Teaching that, Israel is a white supremacist state or it's an apartheid state.
I personally didn't have it in me to stand up and speak out against this. I was lucky enough to be in the class with my fellow student and friend, Ben. He confronted the teacher about how anti-Semitic the author was. The professor responded by saying, "This is a very big accusation to make in front of other students." I kept trying to say something in his defense, but unfortunately I just couldn't muster up the courage to do so. And throughout the semester I always considered thanking him or saying something to him, but it never really felt like the right time came.
There started to be more and more noticeable issues and incidents of anti-Semitism on campus.
My name is Zoe Silverberg. I'm a junior at Tulane studying Jewish studies. When I got engaged in sorority life, my freshman year, I made new friends, and none of them had any idea, just like myself, that one of the people we were hanging out with was anti-Semitic.
Let's get lost tonight. You could be my black Kate Moss tonight.
In studio, Ye is our guest. You're not Hitler. You're not a Nazi. You don't deserve to be called that and demonized.
Well, I
I see good things about Hitler also. Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler. I'm not trying to be shocking. I like Hitler. I do not. The Holocaust is not what happened. Let's look at the facts of that. And Hitler has a lot of redeeming qualities.
Every trope that the Nazis pushed about Jewish people in the 20s, 30s, that's where this is at.
For all the kids that love me, all the Jewish kids that love me, I'm sorry if y'all had to hear a grown-up conversation.
There was an upsetting article that was published in The College Dissident defending the anti-Semitic comments by rapper Ye.
Ye's former personal trainer, who threatened to medicate the crap out of him and bring him back to Zombieland forever, is Jewish. The psychiatrist who misdiagnosed Ye with a mental health disorder is Jewish. Ye's lawyers who manipulated his contracts are Jewish. Simply put, most of the people who have wronged Ye are Jewish.
If I were given the chance to do this again, I would still publish the same article.
Sarah Ma is a junior at Tulane and the author of an article not affiliated with the university about Kanye West.
This girl, Sarah, used to celebrate Hanukkah with me. She used to talk about Judaism with me.
The goal of the article was to basically explain his reasoning and his arguments for why he committed those actions and offer, I guess, some context.
This is their friend, and they didn't know she held these beliefs. So it really riled everyone up. I think it scared us because it was. I liken it to, we have this beautiful manicured lawn here, and there was this weed that sprouted, and I think our campus reaction was, well, how do we pour salt on that, not just that weed, but maybe even around it, right? How do we make sure that this weed is dead and not going to regrow?
I remember going through freshman orientation and having conversations about homophobia, trans rights, and a lot of topics that I think are important to learn about. And one of those topics that I felt like was left out was addressing anti-Semitism.
If we did have some kind of anti-Semitism awareness training at the school, I just think that people like Sarah, who wrote that article, would realize that there is no place for anti-Semitism on this campus.
I launched a petition to include anti-Semitism awareness training during the first year experience at Tulane. One of our big goals is to include anti-Semitism in equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives on campus. If you don't mind, I'd love to get your signature on it as well.
Of course, yeah, happy to help.
I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get this guy's number. I'm like, hi, how can I get involved? And he's like, I'm struggling to get signatures on this petition. And I was like, okay, I can help you. I'm pretty good on social media.
According to the Children's Hospital, needle phobias are particularly prevalent.
And then all of a sudden, Ben's like, I got this awesome girl, Yasmin, and she wants to help out too.
As somebody who's studying marketing,
hi, I'm Yasmin Ohebsian from ASB.
I definitely know a thing or two about how to spread a message.
Zoe, Yasmin, and I went to Cafe Dumont in New Orleans, and we were lucky to meet with Arnie Fielkow.
We just love New Orleans so much.
Arnie is the CEO of the Jewish Federation in New Orleans.
As somebody who's fought anti-Semitism for so long, do you have any advice for the three of us?
I will tell you just a little bit of background with the Jewish Federation here in New Orleans. We created a Center for Jewish Multicultural Affairs. And the objective of the center is to create enhanced relationships between the Jewish community locally and the African American, Hispanic, and LGBTQ+ community. I want to focus just a second on the African American community.
I see good things about Hitler also.
Because you've seen African American entertainers candidly make some very hateful, divisive, anti-Semitic comments. And one of the things that we have to do to combat that is to bring our two communities together. Here in New Orleans, there was a historic partnership between Jews and African Americans, going back to the civil rights movement. And I think one of the things that could really resolve these kind of issues is for Jewish and African American leaders on campus, like you're doing, and elected officials and across the country to really lock arms together and say we're not going to tolerate it.
Jews like Andrew Goodman and Michael Schwerner were murdered in the Mississippi burning so that people who look like me could have the right to vote and the right to live freely and without the indignity of Jim Crow. And so I just have this sense that we're all in this together.
Martin Luther King Jr. had also kind of advocated for the Black and Jewish communities to come together because we're both oppressed peoples. I definitely think that there is some solidarity there.
Where you find Jew hatred, you'll inevitably find racism, you'll inevitably find homophobia, and several other forms of discrimination. And so in order to fight this, I wanted as many influenced groups as possible to have a seat at the table.
Let's do it. This looks incredible.
Yeah.
This is Ben. This is Sloan and Lauren. He's started the initiative, and then Zoe and I joined on board.
All right, how you guys doing? Good. We're working on an initiative right now to get the administration at Tulane to adopt education about anti-Semitism on campus, in addition to their other equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives.
The petition, immediately it blew up. A little over 24 hours, we reached our 1,000 signature mark.
We have endorsement from 20 student organizations, including Black Student Union, Gender and Sexuality Advisory Council. I don't think we could have received support from nearly the amount of student organizations we have without the open support of Ray Mel.
I'm currently president of the Tulane Black Student Union. I'm co-executive for the Black Queer Collective. Growing up, I wasn't out, so I felt very constrained and restricted in what I could do. I actually didn't come out to my family until sophomore year at Tulane.
Historically, if you were gay, society would tell you you have to be in the closet and you have to be ashamed of who you are. And today, if you're a pro-Israel Jew on an American college campus, you're often told that you have to be in the closet about who you are, and you have to be ashamed, and you have to renounce your own sense of your identity.
It would be like saying to people in the LGBTQ community, we love you, and we're not homophobic at all, and we're so thrilled to have you here as part of our community, and we're so glad you're here, and we are so accepting, and you're so wonderful. Never bring your partner with you in public anywhere ever. We love you. I don't think we would say to those people that that's an example of how not homophobic I am.
I just sought out ways that I could help people in becoming who they are, creating safe spaces for people to thrive within their identities. Which is why when Ben came to me, I was like, yeah, I'm completely on your side. Like, whatever you need from me, I'm there.
The Tulane Israel leadership trip is something that we've taken starting in my first year. We call it TILT, and the TILT trip, we recruit leaders from across campus to visit the Middle East. Raymel Green is an amazing student we took.
The trip itself was focused on just simply learning the culture and getting to know the people of Israel. We met people from all sorts of backgrounds. They encouraged us to think freely, ask questions. When it comes to the conflict between Israel and Palestine, I just don't like that Americans feel like we have an opinion. There are too many nuances. There are too many things that we don't know. I'm not saying it's not an important thing for us to all be well aware of and for us to all be more educated on, but I just feel like as people that are not directly impacted and as people that don't know the full story on either end, it is very harmful to all that Americans keep continuously assuming that we know what's best, we know who's right, we know exactly what's going on, because we don't. I went, and I still don't know everything there is to know.
We find the biggest problem is there's, I think, too much confidence that the school is impervious to anti-Semitism. People can't imagine that because we have such a large populace of Jews in our student body, that anti-Semitism is not going to make its way onto Tulane's campus.
It's often said that there's a blind spot in DEI for the Jewish community. Anti-Semitism at its heart is a conspiracy theory. And that makes it different from a lot of other bigotries where you're saying, oh, this group of people is inferior to me. With a conspiracy theory, what you're actually saying is, this group of people is superior to me. They're like these evil supervillains who are manipulating things behind the scenes to their advantage.
Ye's lawyers who manipulated his contracts are Jewish.
Anti-Semitism is similar to homophobia and transphobia in that it's a conspiracy theory. There's that whole idea of, oh, these people are groomers, they're coming into our schools, they're gonna turn your kids gay, they're spreading their, evil ideology, they're corrupting the youth, they're corrupting society. A lot of the expression of bigotry against people in the LGBTQ community also takes the form of conspiracy theories. These people are actually extra powerful and they need to be taken down a notch. That conspiratorial thinking is the bedrock of anti-Semitism. That's where it butts heads with a lot of the way we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, where we're saying, oh, there's people who don't have enough power who we want to raise up.
The administration weren't paying enough attention to it. It felt like a lot more of a priority to us than it did to them. But Ben, Zoe, and I will not stop until this initiative gets passed.
CUNY is the City University of New York.
CUNY is the biggest urban university in the United States. There's 25 colleges.
The most egregious example of anti-Semitism run amok is what we saw at the CUNY Law School commencement.
Their tradition is that the students vote in, a student to give a commencement speech.
To introduce to you Nardine Mohsen Kizwani. Who was elected by the class of 2022 to provide the day student address.
A simple Google search should have led CUNY to conclude that she was inappropriate to be a speaker at a law school graduation.
She posted a video.
I hate your shirt.
Holding a flame to a man.
I'm gonna set it on fire.
As if she's going to
I'm serious.
Light him on fire because he's wearing something in support of the state of Israel.
If she had advocated for the destruction of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, would CUNY have allowed her to speak? If she had advocated for the destruction of Haiti or Jamaica, would she have been allowed to speak? If she had advocated for the destruction of any other country but Israel, there's no doubt in my mind that she never would have been given the platform of a commencement speech.
So she was voted in by the students. And knowing, of course, what she was going to say, they allowed her to speak.
I am grateful to all of you, and I know that without you, I would not be here. In fact, there were many moments in the last 3 years where I thought I wasn't going to make it. I've been facing a campaign of Zionist harassment by well-funded organizations with ties to the Israeli government and military on the basis of my Palestinian identity and organizing.
For the CUNY commencement speaker
The Zionist movement, the prevalence of Jewish communities on campus, it's an extension of white power.
When white was seen as good, Jews weren't white. Now that white is seen as something bad, Jews are white.
They often don't seem to fully grasp the circumstances that led to the creation of Israel. And it would be really positive if universities actually actively taught that history, because the situation as it is today, the appearance that Jews have made it, it's actually a really remarkable turnaround in world history. And it wasn't always like this. It wasn't that long ago that Jewish refugees were crowded in their own camps, waiting to be sent to Israel, telling British inspectors their stories about what happened in the camps. So there's a lack of understanding and recognition of Jewish pain, not just in recent history, but across the ages.
I wanted to be around these amazing students that I got to learn from and grow with the last 3 years. Those fighting for Black, Latinx, Indigenous, Palestinian liberation, and for the freedom of all people living under colonial domination, imperialism, and white supremacist structures both around the world and here in the US.
That leaves no room then for the Jewish students to be able to effectively articulate, wait a minute, but what you're saying is anti-Semitic, right? It's not about white, not white, it's about our Jewish identity.
We've been able to pass a BDS resolution through student government, which CUNY faculty just officially endorsed yesterday. And CUNY Law is the first university in the country to publish a statement standing with the freedom of speech of those fighting for Palestinian liberation.
Now, she's entitled to say whatever she wishes. It's a free country with the First Amendment. But none of us is entitled to be a commencement speaker. When you deliver a commencement speech, you're not only expressing your own opinion, you're expressing a view with the imprimatur of the institution itself. And so ultimately, I'm outraged by CUNY's failure to police anti-Semitism on its own campus.
She's responded to with resounding applause. She's treated like a celebrity.
Thank you.
The Jewish community at CUNY, a lot of the diversity within it is ignored, and I think that's really part of the ignorance that people have, and part of the reason why a lot of people hate us and say that we're all like white privileged Europeans. My parents immigrated from Iran after the revolution in like the 80s. They're both Persian Jews. Neither of them went to college. Most of my aunts and uncles didn't go to college either, so I'm a first-generation college student, and I grew up with the traditions of like a Persian Jewish family, but most people at Baruch are children of immigrants.
I'm a staff member at the Hillel at Baruch College. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago, Indian heritage. My mother decided to get married to a Jewish guy who looks just like Seinfeld, straight up. He's a big Zionist. His family fled Nazi Poland right before 1920. And so maybe ethnically I don't look Ashkenazi Jew, maybe I don't look it, but I definitely feel that type of way, and that's the community I was raised in.
In the 40s, 50s, and even as early as 30s, lots of Jewish students came to CUNY because that's where they could go.
It was awesome. They were crazy, crazy times.
You couldn't go to NYU, Columbia, or Harvard for many anti-Semitic reasons mostly, or quotas and other things. CUNY was available and extremely cheap, or if not free. Now, many CUNY campuses don't have many Jews.
When you look at CUNY as a whole, it's like terrible. Schools are notorious for their anti-Semitism, like students getting harassed going into the Hillel, or like the anti-Semitic remarks, but also like the protests, and their Students for Justice in Palestine chapter is very aggressive.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Resistance is
U.S. imperialism needs the Israeli government as a thug in the Middle East to protect all the oil there. And so they're going to support Israel no matter what. And the media is promoting that message.
So we have some dates here. We're taking it for the Muslim Students Association because yesterday was the start of Ramadan, and dates are a traditional fruit that they have for their iftar break fast meal. And on behalf of the Jews, we're taking it as like a friendly gesture. RJ, you want to come?
Do you see this? The Muslim Student Association posted today, boycott Israeli dates. Today.
That's fucked up. You saw this?
No way. But Zoya responded to me about it.
Wow.
They posted this 18 hours ago, and we've been giving out dates on like most of the CUNY campuses, I think.
Boycott Israeli dates after we give you some California dates? I'm sorry, it's disappointing. Let's have love together. Let's create a community. And we're trying to, and there are great, amazing Muslim students here. And a few students don't believe we should be doing this. They don't believe that the state of Israel should exist. We need to sit together, Jewish students and Muslim students. Sit together at one table, hang out, eat some dates. And if we do that, we say, like, if I know you, I can't hate you.
He's like, oh, you're Jewish? Well, you're the only Jew who I can tolerate because at least you don't try to spit that propaganda.
Yeah,
I'm like, yo, are you fucking stupid? So I told him today, I was like, yo, come outside. I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. I'm like, yo, yeah, I told him. I'm like, yo, come outside. I will beat the shit out of you. He ran out the class and ran home. I'm graduating this semester, so if I smack him, it's probably not gonna end too well for me. And I've been good recently, so I'm not trying to get in no issues.
Please.
But
let's do it.
it's not gonna end well for anyone.
We're gonna get him. There's a process.
We gotta get him in trouble with you.
Yeah. Can you please? I'm gonna write it down. Either way. Thank you.
Yeah,
we're gonna turn it. We're gonna turn it.
Ridiculous.
Thank you.
Deep seated anger, depression, and anxiety, right, of our young people. I've never seen students struggle so much. Unfortunately, this is all I deal with.
I don't think necessarily that the admin have bad intentions where they don't care. They're just trying to do the best that they can with the knowledge that they have, and a lot of them don't have knowledge of Jewish experience.
How do you feel? What does it feel like to be a Jewish student at CUNY nowadays?
I mean, I took off last semester. It was a lot. I had an extreme burnout, and I do see myself isolating from non-Jewish people, which I don't like. I don't like the belief in isolation. I like the idea of integration, with society, and so I do feel myself pulling back from people, lack of trust. Even with professors, there's this lack of feeling of like, I can be open, I can be honest. There's this brokenness. I don't want to say I'm jaded, but definitely there's a lot more feeling of being jaded and not feeling protected by the administration.
It is incumbent on the university to protect those students. And I think the issue is there has been no action by the university to do that.
We have a pervasive culture of anti-Semitism that's engulfed our college campuses.
The Jewish students and the professors all feel harassed, intimidated, afraid to express their viewpoints, afraid to be pro-Israel, afraid to just attend school. And we're here to listen to their painful testimonies and their trauma. And the chancellor of CUNY, in a very cowardly move, decided not to appear. He canceled. Instead, he sent 3 witnesses who are here on Zoom. They're not even here in this room.
The chancellor at CUNY never even bothered to show up. And I think that sent a terrible, terrible message.
I just wanted, and why I wanted to be part of this film is to reassure everybody that I take it seriously personally, that the university does too.
I do appreciate all the work you've been trying to do, but I think that we're here because whatever work has been done so far, it's not working. The anti-Semitism is only increasing. It's not decreasing. So we're here to explore different options.
Yes.
Do you believe that Jews have a right to feel safe on CUNY campuses?
Absolutely. I believe every single person does, especially Jews, given their unique history of persecution. Absolutely.
Would you agree that when Jewish students are discriminated against based on their nationality, religion, origin, or identity, when they identify as being Zionist, for example, it creates a hostile environment for Jewish students?
I would say it could create a hostile environment. It could create a hostile environment.
Thank you.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the term boycott, divest, and sanction?
Yes.
Are you aware of any campaign on any CUNY campus to boycott, divest, and sanction any of these countries for their human rights violations? Russia?
Not aware, no.
China?
I'm not aware.
Iran?
I'm not aware.
Saudi Arabia?
I am not aware, no.
North Korea?
Not aware.
How about the state of Israel?
Yes, there have been for Israel, yes.
I'm going to ask this question. Why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose only one country has been subject to these actions and not any others?
Because some people are anti-Semitic.
Okay.
Well, you're the only Jew who I can...
We had a very powerful testimony by students who deal with anti-Semitism that I think was very eye-opening.
Pulling back from people. The anxiety that I feel is so real. Like, I have had moments where I had breakdowns in the gym locker room, straight up just crying, in the library. I can't even emotionally explain all the feelings that there are, and that's literally just the beginning of my experiences, and thank you for taking the time to listen.
I especially want to thank Tivia. It takes a lot of guts and bravery to come out and testify about your traumatic experiences, and I just want to say that I'm committed to you and the rest of the students at CUNY and other universities to making sure that you do feel safe and you do feel included.
We need to be better at showing the community that that we're serious about when reports come in, the investigations that we conduct, and that we have taken action when we have the evidence to show that a case of anti-Semitism or discrimination has occurred.
The status quo is fundamentally failing Jewish students on college campuses, so we need a new model of enforcement.
I would impose a monitor on schools where there's a practice and pattern of anti-Semitism and require those schools to demonstrate real progress.
A federal monitor on site who can see the facts on the grounds with his own eyes and then report whether a particular university is in compliance with the law.
Hi, good morning, Mayor. I'm here to see Councilwoman Vernica.
Hi, yes, right this way. She's waiting for you.
Thank you so much. It impacts your entire life and then nothing happens. So a lot of people just feel like, why am I doing this? Why am I going through all this?
Because of you, we're able to actually commit CUNY to action. If we don't have people speaking out, then we don't have anything.
Newton's laws of physics. A force is inert unless it's acted upon by an external force, and you need external pressure on institutions of higher learning.
If Jewish students feel uncomfortable on our campuses right now, I would say reach out to the presidents of those campuses. Heck, reach out to us. We're not going to allow those situations to continue on any CUNY campus. If that's the way someone feels, reach out to us now.
We now come to the elected speakers for the class of 23, the student speakers. Join me in welcoming Fatima Mohammed, elected by the graduating full-time pre-grad cohort, to offer remarks.
Fatima Mohammed's record,
hello everyone,
is as hostile to Jews and Israel as the prior commencement speaker.
I want to celebrate CUNY Law as one of the few, if not the only law school, to make a public statement defending the right of its students to organize and speak out against Israeli settler colonialism.
She too was treated like a celebrity.
As Israel continues to indiscriminately rain bullets and bombs on worshipers, murdering the old, the young, attacking even funerals and graveyards, as it encourages lynch mobs to target Palestinian homes and businesses, as it imprisons its children, her silence is no longer acceptable.
Not only a standing ovation from the students and from her peers, but from the faculty and administration that were sitting on the stage with her.
Last year we had this long one-day hearing on anti-Semitism where we exposed pervasive discrimination, harassment, anti-Semitism against students and faculty. How come after all of that, we still have a commencement speaker who is worse than the speaker last year?
CUNY didn't do anything, and we are back to the street to be clear and loud. Enough is enough. We are not going to go away.
This has to stop here in New York City. New York City is the Tel Aviv of America. If it happens here, it's going to happen anywhere.
CUNY has failed us, and it's time we held the Chancellor accountable for the failures of CUNY under his tenure.
It took 2 weeks for their board of trustees to issue a statement condemning the speech.
If there is somebody who used the phrase hate speech in the statement, I did. I believe that right now at the law school, there won't be a student speaker at the next graduation.
Moving forward, we are trying to create a situation where we don't have a repeat of that again. Also, Peter Beinart, who's also a journalist, came to speak at the law school in a panel.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but...
Well, you are.
I know.
Yes.
But I don't want to waste time hearing about combating anti-Semitism by inviting Peter Beinart to the law school.
We have been sold this story of a pan-ideological, bipartisan anti-Semitism, which the research suggests really does not exist.
Could you share with us what schools you're talking to and getting good ideas from and are serving as good models?
We are looking at, if you look at larger institutions around the country, if I remember, University of Michigan.
Can I pivot for just a moment? I want to ask you about Mark Lamont Hill.
Sure.
How was he hired? Why was he hired?
The vetting process was done on a school basis. I think in the end the president had to sign off on that hire. I think it was a major mistake. I believe that the chancellor believes it was a major mistake. Would I say it is coincidental that President Gorel is no longer there? Someone who had at the same point been dropped from CNN and attracted negative attention in Philadelphia to bring that person to New York, I think it was a mistake. But it was done. And it kind of eluded and got by everyone because it was done on that level. Was it done to elude attention? I'm not going to say it wasn't.
We demand decolonization. We demand an end to the occupation. We demand an end to apartheid.
Mr. Chairman, on August 21st, there was an executive committee meeting of the board. The next day, the Philadelphia Inquirer announced the hiring of Hill. The minutes of that meeting are still not posted, nor is the video of that meeting, although you've had subsequent board meetings that have been posted. Can you enlighten us as to whether the executive committee approved the hiring at that meeting and why the minutes are not posted yet on the CUNY website?
Absolutely not, and was not discussed in that meeting.
So why haven't the minutes of that meeting been posted?
I have no clue. That's not what I do.
Okay.
I can tell you, when the committee goes into executive session, those minutes are not public because it's usually about legal, personnel.
Assuming that's true, the optics are still bad, that it met the day before the Inquirer broke the story. So would you consider, at least in the interest of optics and PR, to release the minutes of that meeting to disprove the theory that maybe there was an approval?
No,
Okay.
I'm not
All
going to
right.
do that. It's ridiculous.
If I may, so
Come on.
this is,
Free, free Palestine! Free Palestine!
CUNY has a storied tradition of rabble-rousing. Fordham was founded in 1841 as a Jesuit Catholic institution. It is a profound part of the Catholic faith to walk with the excluded, to welcome the stranger, to worry about those who are marginalized, and to lift them up. Part of what I really love as a Catholic school, I get to write messages, as I do several times a year, explaining what Passover means, talking about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Let me teach you how beautiful this is and how much it matters that we come together. We are very proud at Fordham of a Jewish studies program whose courses are really well aligned with the core curriculum, so more of our students take them. We have programming that deals with the complexity and nuance of Israel, that insists that we talk about what is complicated, that we do the work not just of saying anti-Semitism is bad, don't do it, but that we really bring people on board.
Students for Justice in Palestine are largely, if not mostly, responsible for the anti-Semitic hostility that Jewish students are feeling on college campuses across the country today.
I had an interest in Students for Justice in Palestine from the beginning. I had friends who were older than me that were contributing to the cause at other universities, so I thought it would only be right to have a group on campus.
Fordham's Dean of Students researched the way that this group behaved on other campuses.
What started as a peaceful protest in support of Palestinians on the campus of FAU quickly escalated as emotions flared.
Jewish students at Tufts University say they're no longer safe on campus.
People in that room screamed about how they wanted to kill me. I go here too.
I'm here on Berkeley campus to have a conversation. Hello.
Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina!
Would you like to have a conversation about this?
A lot of pro-Palestinian students
Can we please talk? No, it's not even talking. No looking in the eye. No eye contact.
have a stance called anti-normalization. Basically, that means that they won't hold any dialogue or conversation with someone who considers themselves a Zionist.
We won't even deal with you. We won't dialogue with you. We won't engage with you. That is so antithetical to the values of a university.
I don't think that.
Look at that. Literally listen to what you're saying.
The ideology is in fact regressive.
She just said Palestinians and Israelis have the same rights in Israel. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I thought you were educated. You are the dumbest motherfucker I've ever seen in my entire life.
Luckily, I'm not afraid of you.
It's trying to drag people back into tribalism that fuels bigotry and fuels hatred. It's not something that actually is progressive.
The purpose of freedom in Judaism is to allow people to freely take on this obligation, these obligations to create a civic society, to take on these commandments. And that is a very, very uncool idea. That has been an uncool idea since ancient times. It is incompatible with tyranny. It is incompatible with any kind of authoritarianism. It's incompatible with a lack of diversity of ideas, because the other core concept in Judaism is a diversity of ideas. I mean, the reason the Talmud is 3,000 pages long is because it includes everybody's opinions, not just the people who won the argument.
Consistent with Fordham's values. The Dean of Students rejected the chapter. The SJP chapter ended up filing a lawsuit against Fordham University.
My graduation today is a little bit bittersweet because I had tried to establish a Students for Justice in Palestine here at Fordham to educate the Fordham community about basic Palestinian human rights, and I was denied that right to have a club existing on campus. I'm hoping that for
The appellate division decided in favor of Fordham University.
We have this profound desire and need in higher ed for the ability to disagree with each other, to have speech, to have ideological debates. But then where is the line between that and that which is hurtful and harmful and makes people feel threatened?
On October 7th, I lost a friend, and I assumed that people would be understanding and people would be in solidarity with us.
A recent Harvard-Harris poll found that American adults were split on whether they stand with Israel or Hamas.
It's been very dark for a lot of people, very difficult to just move on with everyday life.
Tensions were high here Tuesday night at Gelman Library as projection showed words on the front of the building such as "Glory to our martyrs" and "Free Palestine from the river to the sea."
Joining me now is Sabrina Soffer, a Jewish student at GW University.
I was very shocked, but I was not surprised, and I'll tell you why. I think that Jewish students have been warning of this kind of radical ideology by anti-Israel groups on campus, and this is just one extreme manifestation that they're really showing their true colors here.
The one silver lining that comes out of this is that the world must wake up. Those who are kind of in the middle of the road that we can influence, it's time to say anti-Zionism, which is Hamas's ideology, no Jewish state in any part of the land, is anti-Semitism, period. There's no other way around it.
The hostility of the anti-Israel protesters escalated from hate speech to physical violence. They beat several of my Jewish friends with flagpoles, megaphones, fists, and a belt. One Jewish student was hospitalized. I am one person representing countless students who feel the way I do. Unable to enjoy the freedom to study in a country that is known and admired for its academic freedoms. I am here imploring you, our policymakers, to compel my university to step up and show us what American values look like. We will not be silent until they act. Thank you. Am Yisrael Chai.
The anti-Semitism is so horrific and so unrelenting. What's concerning me now is that we're also now dealing with it in the K through 12 schools. It's trickling down into those schools. To me, that is emblematic of how serious the problem is today.
Videos capturing moments of chaos in the halls of Hillcrest High School in Queens as they dance in a circle and wave Palestinian flags.
Is the former principal at Hillcrest still drawing a salary from New York City Public Schools today?
Yes, he is.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I said, yes, he is.
You are still paying
He is no longer the
former
principal of the school.
How can Jewish students feel safe at New York City public schools when you can't even manage to terminate the principal of Open Season on Jews High School?
This involves a Tacoma Park middle school teacher who is suspended now after making anti-Jewish social media posts in which she made references about, quote, wealthy local Jews and accused them of parasitic behavior. Angela Wolf is not only a Montgomery County public school teacher, but also a union rep.
Speaking first about teachers, we have taken action in some cases. We put them.
You've gotten rid of teachers. You said, you know, they don't belong in Montgomery County schools. You're teaching hatred, and we're going to get rid of you. Has that happened?
We have taken disciplinary action, yes.
Have you fired anybody?
No.
I went to Friends Seminary beginning in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. When I was in 9th grade, there were swastikas drawn in the bathroom. When I was in 10th grade, there was a math teacher at the school who did a Nazi salute in the classroom. Friends brought in a musician to play at the school who harbored anti-Israel and anti-Semitic views.
It is true that I'm a self-hater. I usually tend to correct those who accuse me of being a self-hater, that I'm actually a proud self-hater.
I had raised my concerns about this with a few people in the administration. I did not feel like my concerns were addressed. Friends is a Quaker school. They believe in Quaker values. Quakers do not support Israel. That kind of just factored in to the environment to become so hostile to Jewish students. I definitely felt ostracized. I would not send my kids there. After leaving the environment at Friends Seminary High School, I spent the first 2 years of college in Tel Aviv. At the end of my freshman year, there was a war between Israel and Hamas. I would see posts from many different people, from friends, stating their opposition to Israel. I'm waiting to hear if the bomb siren is going off in Tel Aviv with my friends and the entire program, my entire school. And meanwhile, people back in New York are posting basically like saying you should go die and we support the people that are launching rockets at you. I had emailed the administration raising these concerns. The response I got was, sorry. I don't think that's an adequate response. Now I'm at Columbia, about to enter my senior year.
I want to bring in Elliot Sadoff right now. He's a senior at Columbia University. He's going to graduate hopefully in a couple of weeks. Elliot, great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you for having me.
How difficult have these last weeks been?
It's been very difficult, not just for me, but for every Jewish student on Columbia's campus and even non-Jewish students. It's just complete atmosphere of chaos. The mob is ruling campus.
All of you, are you so close?
It seems for now that no one's doing anything to stop it.
They have completely failed, miserably failed in their responsibility to protect their Jewish students.
It's easy to talk doom and gloom and be worried and, oh my goodness, the sky is falling. As Jews, we've been through so many things that have been harder than this.
What I tell students is there are thousands of years of your ancestors behind you who have come through this with strength and courage.
You have to not allow yourself to be intimidated and bullied, and it's challenging and it's painful, but you know, if you censor yourself, then the other side wins.
And for that, I give you the immortal words from our ancestors, Chazak ve'ematz, be strong and courageous, because it isn't easy. Chazak ve'ematz. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous enough to lead people into battle. Be strong and courageous enough to learn again and again what is worth defending. Be strong and courageous enough to stand at Sinai at every hour of every day. Be strong and courageous as you carry forth with you the antidote to tyranny. Who are Jews? Jews are a type of social group that was common in the ancient Near East and happens to be very uncommon in the West today. Jews are a joinable is important because of course people can become Jewish. Jews are a joinable social group or joinable tribal group with a shared history, homeland, and culture. Part of that culture is a non-universalizing religion. So what I just said to you is like a paragraph in English. In Hebrew, there's one word for that, which is one syllable. It's 2 letters long, and that word is Am. So Am Yisrael is the people. Sometimes it's translated as the people of Israel.
Dealing with all the bullshit on campuses, the shocking anti-Semitism, the anti-Jewishness that's taking place. I'm bringing up Sabrina Sofer from the George Washington University.
We face an arduous battle, but we shall not tremble in fear. Our stars of David will shine on our chests and in our hearts. This generation is ready to lead, to fight with steadfast confidence and unconquerable moral courage. Am Yisrael Chai! Am Yisrael Chai lenatzach!
You're going to class anyway.
I have to. I can't give in to the mob rule of students on campus trying to intimidate me and my fellow Jewish classmates.
So it's something for you personally. You have to make sure you're not intimidated.
I do. I have just as much a right to be on campus as a Jewish student, and I can't give in to that.
רק תפילות, אפילו אם קשה לראות, תמיד אתה משאיר לי אור אחד קטן.